Hello everyone, myself Dr. Jyoti Mandala. Welcome you all to the video lectures on object-oriented programming through Java. In this lecture, we are going to learn about constructor overloading. So after our last lecture, we learned about what actually a method is and what is about a constructor also we learned in detail. So there we learned like constructor is nothing but it is syntactically similar to method, but what is the necessity of constructor is it is used to initialize the instance variable. So whenever you want to initialize the instance variables at the time of object creation, then we can write our own constructor. But suppose if you have not written any constructor in your code, then a default constructor will be created by the compiler and all the instance variables will be initialized to 0. That is what we learned in our last lecture. So in detail, if you want to learn about the constructor, I will be providing you the link here, so you can go through that and you can learn about constructor. And we also observed there the difference between the constructors and methods also. We have highlighted the 5 differences. You all need to understand the difference between the constructor and the method. So once you are clear with the constructor, we have an option called constructor overloading. Now what actually this constructor overloading is, it is a technique of having more than one constructor in our program, but the difference in that those constructors will be in the parameters list. So we all know how to write a constructor. So constructor name should be equal to your class name. That is what we learned in our previous video. Now, if you want to have a constructor overloading concept, where if you want to have a technique of having multiple constructors with the same class name, then there should be a difference in the parameter list. Then that approach is called as a constructor overloading. So each constructor will be performing the different task. So that is what we want to have. If all the constructors are performing the same task, then there is no usage of using different constructors. But if you want to have an option of different constructors performing different tasks, then all the constructors can be differentiated in the parameters list. So how the compiler can come to know like which constructor to be called, that depends upon the number of parameters available or the type of variables you have used. Depending upon that, the respective constructor will be called by the compiler. So the compiler will be differentiating using that approach. So to understand this one, let us see one simple example about this constructor overloading. I have taken a class called student. So you're taking a class called student and the constructor name should be equal to your student only. Now let us take 3 instance variables. ID is integer, name as string and age as int. So these 3 instance variables can be initialized by using our constructor. Now in your main method, let us consider this is our main method. I have created one student S1. Now if you observe here, I have created student S1, and while I am creating student S1, I am passing 2 parameters in the constructor. That means I need to have one constructor of the name student obviously, and it should take 2 parameters. So here I have written the code for this one, where student constructor is written and it is taking 2 parameters. First one is integer and second one is string. Now the I value is assigned to ID and n value is assigned to name, but we have not initialized age here. So if you are not initializing age here, then what happens? The age will be assigned to 0 automatically by the compiler. Right now, if you see, I have created one more object here, where in this at this object creation time, I am passing 3 parameters in the constructor. That means the compiler will check for one more constructor in the same class with the same name, where it requires 3 parameters. So that means we need to write one more constructor with 3 parameters. Observe here. Here the constructor takes 2 parameters. Here the constructor takes 3 parameters. So I will be assigned to ID, N will be assigned to name, and A will be assigned to age. So depending upon, now S1 will be calling this constructor and S2 will be calling to this constructor. Observe here, we are writing 2 constructors with the same name, but there is a difference in the parameters. Right, so there is a difference in the number of parameters. So this approach is called as a constructor overloading. So I am repeating once again, constructor overloading is nothing but we can have in the same class two or more constructors with the same name, but there should be a difference in the parameter list. So if you are writing like this, then it is nothing but constructor overloading, and Java supports this feature. Now let us write one method called display method to understand whether we are getting all three values or not. So s1.display and s2.display I am calling. Now what is the display method here is I am trying to print ID, name and age. Now if you observe s1.display, s1 is this one where we are calling this constructor, but we are initializing only two values only. Now what about the age value? Age will be initialized to 0 here. Now when you call s1.display, you are displaying ID, name and age. ID value will be whatever I value you have sent, that is 11, name will be Jyoti and age will be your 0 value. Now if you see here s2.display we are calling, s2.display is nothing but s2 is passing three values. Now we will be trying to display the ID, name and age. Then what happens? ID will be initialized to 22, name will be initialized to this name and age will be initialized to 25. Right? So you need to observe here is depending upon the at the time of object creation, whichever constructor we are calling, it will be calling whichever number of parameters, depending upon the number of parameters, that constructor will be called. So if you run this program, you will be getting this output. Let us run this program and check whether we are getting the same output or not. So let us write the code first. So what is our code? We need to create one class called student, and in this student we will be declaring three variables. Let us call the same variable I am taking. Okay. You all know about strings and all. We already learned in detail about the strings. Okay. And then I am taking int age. Now I am creating these are the three instance variables. Now I am creating one constructor. Always the constructor name should be equal to your class name. Now in the first constructor I am taking only two variables, okay, a and string b. Let us consider, because I want to pass two values. Now what happens? I value I want to initialize it to a. How this initialization and all can be done, we learned in detail in our last lecture, okay. And the name will be initialized to b. Right? Now this is our first constructor. I am writing one more constructor. Okay, let me copy this one. I think here there should not be any comma. Let me copy the same thing. Now but instead of two variables I want to take three variables, okay, and then here I want to initialize my age to C variable. Okay, age will be initialized to now C. Now after initializing age to C, I want to write one method called display method. Observe the difference between the method and the constructor. There should not be any return type for your constructor, but there should be a return type for your method. Okay, so I am trying to display. I just want to print ID, and then just I want to give the space in between the values, and then I want to display name, okay, and then I want to again have a space here, and then age. Right, so this is our display method. Now I will be writing our main method. So in the main method I will be creating the objects. Okay. Now in the main method what I am doing, let me show you. I will be creating the objects. So let us call that object is student1, student s1 equal to new student. Okay, and then I am passing two values. Let us call the first value as 10, and the because I am passing two, I need to pass two arguments. So this is the okay, and now I am creating one more student, and this student will be calling a constructor called with the three parameters. Okay, so let me call 20, and then let us call the age as 33. Okay, now let us call the methods s1 dot display to get the values, whether we are getting the values or not, to check that one. S2 dot again display. Okay, this is the end of your main method and this is the end of your class. Now you need to save this program. Okay, the file name should be equal to your class name. Our class name is student, so student.java, and I am saving this program. Right, now let us compile this program. To compile this program, we need to move to that path, and there we need to write java c student.java. Now whenever you are compiling, if any errors are there, that will be displayed here. So we got one error. What is that error? We have written I, but we are trying to display ID. So let us modify this one. This is I. Okay. Again save this one. Compile this program. Again we got one error where we are trying to display what is that? Is there any mistake here? System.out. Okay, see here it is println. I have written printf. Okay, let me run this program. So if no errors are there, you will be getting an output like this, Java, and you need to write student. Now you can check here. For S1, with S1 we are trying to display the values I and name only assigned with S1, because S1 is passing two values for the constructor. Only I and name are assigned, but we have not initialized any age. So if you observe here, age value is initialized to 0. But for the other S2.display, we have given all three values and we are getting all three values. Right, so this is how constructors can be overloaded. You need to observe here is we have two constructors with the same name, but there is a difference in the number of parameters. So such a technique is called as a constructor overloading, and Java supports this approach. I hope you all are clear with this concept of constructor overloading. Let us all meet in our next lecture. Until then, thank you all of you.